Welcome back. In this video, we're going to review a video from JAMARI on Charlie, Moist Critical, or PenguinzO. I've seen videos from both of them, not that many, but they both seem like reasonable guys. I agree with most of their takes, but this video from JAMARI is kind of lame, and I will explain why by reacting to it. It's not that long, and I mean it's the title is kind of clickbaity, right? It's like, oh wow, so the situation is crazy. Like it's not really crazy. Let's react to this video and I'll explain what I don't like about what JAMARI says.
So last year we had some major drama between Moist Critical, aka Charlie, and streamer Sneako, as Sneako was in his Red Pill era and posting relentlessly about Charlie, as well as a couple of other YouTubers and streamers he had made this infamous collage of.
Best commentary award is a dude.
I mean, Sneako, like, it's, to me personally, it's best not to engage with a person like that at all.
Who doesn't believe in anything, who games for 13 hours straight, and so guys, I farted in a diarrhea, and this happened. I'm not gonna say names, someone texted me, he's in a monogamous relationship. This is his girl.
He posted about Charlie to the point where he eventually had to reply with,
I'm gonna skip all of this.
Imbecile. You absolutely.
I'm gonna skip all of this. Like, it really does not matter in the great scheme of things, right? It's not about that stuff.
Go here and make him look very immature. And I would say the majority of viewers saying that he is a hypocrite for talking about Dr. Disrespect, but not this.
I will make a video about Dr. Disrespect has tweeted again, only a couple of tweets, but I think it's worthy of an analysis because he has a lot of options in the way he reacts to stuff. And then maybe we'll do some predictions as well. But the situation around Mr.Beast, I'm definitely going to create a dedicated video on that one because I have some ideas about what is going on there, how people are reacting to it, and who is like complicit. I want to make a video about complicity in general and online stuff. Let's see.
Yo, look out, Moist Critical is not going to go talk about the Chris situation because he wants to have the Mr.Beast collab.
Well, Charlie would respond to this on Twitter and even spend several minutes in his video about the Chris situation, addressing Sneako's claim that he was ducking this topic.
I was always going to make a full breakdown of this because it's bad. It's a horrible situation. So yes, you're right. I do talk about like big trending bad shit like Dr. Disrespect.
So the big thing is like he's being friendly with Mr.Beast. I do believe that he has defended Mr.Beast when he was being attacked online, you know, for what he was doing. Again, I'll make a video about Mr.Beast separately. The reason why I dislike this video has nothing to do with that.
Or like Cody Ko most recently. I don't know why people thought I wouldn't talk about this. So I've never been someone to shy away from a bad situation like this just because I know or am familiar with the person that it's about. He has no problem abandoning his morals and defending blatant, brushing it under the rug as long as it means it keeps the Mr.Beast.
And this time people were a lot more conflicted about who actually won, as both of them made some very strange comments throughout this conversation.
All right.
So just to be completely transparent with you guys, the full debate here was around 90 minutes long, and no, I did not watch the entire thing. I just feel like at this point my brain is already rotted enough, and I didn't want to put it through that type of stress. But if these two comments that these guys made are any indication of how this debate went overall, yeah, I just don't think my brain could have taken it. So first, let's talk about what Sneako had to say. As you guys know, he's been riding the anti-age of consent wave for quite some time now.
It's just because we have a different idea of what it means to be a child, which can be tracked historically. The general principle in Islam is, you know, you can do what you kind of want, so long as, I'm not going to say you can do what you want, so long as you harm. You can marry whomever you want to marry, so long as it doesn't cause them harm, physical and psychological. And once again, yeah, it's very relative.
And so Charlie kind of questioned him about his beliefs here, asking him if a 21-year-old should be able to marry a 15-year-old. And you'll never believe what he has to say.
I'm talking about your personal beliefs. Do you think someone in their 20s should be able to marry a 15 or 16-year-old?
So should someone who's about to graduate college be able to marry someone who's just entering high school? Like last year they were running around on that middle school playground.
I personally wouldn't do it. I don't know many people who would do it.
Clearly, you know what JAMARI thinks, right? And he agrees with PenguinzO or Charlie, and like, yeah. I mean, the majority of people thankfully agree with them.
Do it. The maturity for people and the teenagers in the West is getting much worse, but there are...
We're talking globally. Let's just talk globally. Like, do you think it is okay for, and I'm not talking about just you specifically anymore, anyone. Do you think it's okay for anyone in their 20s, an adult, to marry a 15 or 16-year-old?
A 21-year-old, if there was a marriage where the father consented and the daughter consented, and it was both good on both families and they wanted to do it, why am I going to get involved? Why should we get the government involved?
Well, at that point, that's almost like arguing, well, why should we have any laws at all? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of the government overreaching into people's personal lives and their personal decisions, but as a society, we have to have some sort of structure of what's right and wrong, and I would think that most people with a rational brain can understand why a 15-year-old is not mentally equipped to handle the decision of getting married to someone in their 20s.
Why would I tell them if everybody's consenting?
And also at the same time, people are saying like it should be more difficult to get out of a marriage, right?
If everybody's okay with it, if the parents are okay with it, if nobody's being harmed, if it's going to be okay, if they're both abiding by it.
I mean,
by the rules
Let's
and
just
not hurting each other.
ignore.
Why not?
Because, like I said, the
stupid shit he said.
15-year-old just does not have the mental capacity to truly understand what they're doing, and so really they cannot consent to the marriage. And I believe that is kind of Charlie's point that he tries to make against Sneako here, which I think is the right line of thinking. The only problem is Sneako uses the classic...
Here's my problem with this video. And it's actually quite an important part of this video, I think. And that's why I'm creating this review of this video. But let's see, let's hear what he says.
debate tactic of using Charlie's own logic against him when Charlie would try...
So he's using Charlie's logic against him, right? We need to protect people up to a certain age. That age should not be that young. He says, hey, it should be younger. Why does the government get involved? Blah, blah, blah. All right. And he's now going to use that against him.
to make an even possibly more mind-boggling
And it's a tactic. And what he actually is going to say is something that I've heard before.
point about...
And Charlie's reaction to that was not great. And I think I know why. But Jamari's reaction to the entire thing was even worse.
a child's ability to choose to transition. But we'll get back to that in a second. I did first want to talk about some of the other comments that Sneako has made regarding the age of consent.
Like, why does that define the age of consent? I had a debate about this, and I said the age of consent is maturity, is age of puberty, once the body is mature. Because, bro, I know some people, I went through puberty when I was like 17.
Saying that the age of consent should be when somebody goes through puberty is just insane. Like, I don't know if these
Like, that's what like I said, Jamari, most of the times I will agree
type of
with him.
comments come from a creepy place, or it's just an effect of constantly having to play the devil's advocate over and over again, while also trying to have the most shocking opinion possible.
That's why the age of consent being strictly...
I do think most of it is just, you know, saying stuff he or they know what people want to hear within their community. And it's just, yeah, it's just shit on top of shit. It's just,
Exactly.
that's, like, you shouldn't engage with these type of people. You shouldn't engage.
This second 18, this...
There are people you can have a conversation with that have really shitty opinions, but
defines maturity, and everyone has to pretend like, yes,
just block the guy and move on. Like, with some people, you could say, like, you're platforming the person or whatever. Like, in this case, I think it's really not a good idea for a big YouTuber to engage with these type of people. You know, you need to be more selective. Even if he's saying super nasty shit, even if it's towards you, you can shit on him back and then just move on. But just keep it limited to just a small message. It's not going to benefit society by going against a guy like this. It's just not going to benefit you in the long run. It's not.
that defines maturity. This is the
Like,
correct age, not 1 second more, not 1 second less, and if anything contradicts it, yep.
you have to draw. Okay, so let's talk about drinking and driving. They put a limit there, right? They had to, like, an arbitrary line. Like, you have to draw a line with legislation in general, with a lot of stuff. You'd rather them not have to do that. Maybe look into why they do have that. Why do they allow, like, a little amount? Because probably it stays in your system for quite a long time. And, like, they're taking into consideration that there are bigger guys, like me, I'm a big guy, and it's probably going to impact me less, right? But the legislation doesn't take that into account. They're not going to ask you to step on a scale, and they're not going to do, like, a test at the hospital to see if someone has reached puberty or not, like, to allow them to do, like, come on, dude. It's just so dumb. Again, my puppy just climbed 2 sets of stairs. Well, he's not allowed to come. Roger. 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 Come on. Rog. All right. Yeah, we're working on that. So yeah, let's react.
Disgusting!
I mean, to me, it's just such a weird hill to choose to die on over and over again. I mean, by his logic, if a girl goes through puberty at the age of 12, which I believe many of them do, well, she's then prepared to marry, you know, some 25-year-old man. She's mentally equipped to do so. I mean, by his very same logic, he should have absolutely no problem with what Chris from Mr.Beast just did. As a matter of fact, in his book, Chris could have went out and married that kid that he was talking to through Discord, and he should really have no problem
Yeah, that is kind of funny to point that out as well.
with it, right? As long as the kids start going through puberty.
Yeah, suddenly it's like, no, we need to protect kids, and then it's like, hey, stop protecting kids.
That the age of consent is, what do you think it is? I don't know. What do you think it is? Tell me. You think it's 18? It's only 18 in something like 10 states. The rest of it's 6, 17, 16. Around the world, it's...
Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can look at the different countries and you can disagree with a lot of countries. You know, you can have an opinion about that. That's fine. But just to say like, hey, there are states where it's lower doesn't necessarily tell you that it's good.
16, a lot of places
That's
14,
kind of
15. What do
a
you think it is? Is
dumb
everybody-
argument.
Japan, they just changed it from 13 to 16. Were they before then?
If that
What's
is
the
true, I
consistency?
don't
To me-
know. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's good that they changed it. You know?
The blanket age of consent all over the world should probably be 18. Like, at least in this country, that's when you start getting more personal freedoms. That's the age where if you f up, the government no longer sees you as a child, and they're going to punish you as an adult. And at that point, you're really just free to make your own decisions and live with the repercussions of your actions. I don't
Marriage 18 to me makes sense.
know,
Yeah.
to me, it just does not have to get a lot deeper than that. And here's where Charlie actually falls right into Sneako's trap.
And then age of consent. And like when they're both younger, it shouldn't be an issue, right? You're not going to put them in jail.
Do you believe that somebody can go through hormone therapy? Can they change their gender if they're a child?
I think that's totally fine as long as everyone is consenting. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And then we're talking about age of consent. So now this is how the thing backfires to him, right? So he's like, let's go back.
Does not have to get a lot deeper than that. And here's where Charlie actually falls right into Sneako's trap.
So he falls in his trap by not being properly informed. He has not researched the subject, which Jamari also has not, and which will become obvious.
Do you believe that somebody can go through hormone therapy? Can they change their gender if they're a
Hormone therapy, change their gender
child?
I think that's totally fine
if they're a child. And then Charlie says that's totally fine
as long as everyone is consenting. Yeah.
as long as everyone is consenting. And the word consent is what they were discussing, right? And the age of consent for Charlie, he's saying it should not go down, and like it's like you're contradicting yourself. But he's laughing mostly because he's using the word consent.
Okay.
Just look at the glee.
And Jamari is like, "Oh, you did own him there. You did kind of own him there."
On Sneak.
No, you didn't. And if you think he did, then it's because Charlie was not informed.
Sneako's face as he realizes that he fell for his trap card.
Hormone therapy. Can they change their gender if they're a child?
I think that's totally fine as long as everyone is consenting. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And obviously, guys, what's the point that's about to be made? Sneako's pretty much going to say, well, Charlie, so a kid cannot consent to marrying an adult, but they can't consent to making a life-altering decision.
Okay.
Life-altering decision. Yeah. Those are big words, right? Hormone therapy typically means that they're getting hormone blockers and stuff like that. Let me be very clear on this. I'm not an expert. I've just watched a lot of videos about this topic. I've watched debates and stuff like that. Probably more than Moist Critical and Jamari, right? Because I'm kind of interested in all the arguments and what all different perspectives are and the science and stuff like that. It kind of interests me. But yeah, Jamari uploaded a video with 1 million views 5 days ago. And it's like, this is kind of a sensitive topic, right? It's kind of important to be informed, to know what you're talking about, because it's impacting a lot of people, even though it's a small group within the entire population of this planet. But yeah, let's not forget that how messed up it must be for someone that doesn't feel like they're in the right body, right? I don't think Jamari or Charlie disagree on that. They probably agree that that is kind of, yeah, not cool. And if you can help them, that would be good. And then let's hear what Jamari has to say.
So as long as everyone...
Parents are okay with it, and you are okay with it, I think that's totally a family decision to make, yeah.
Okay.
So they're literally
What I like is that Jamari does include later on like a reaction from Charlie, which I think is really good because it gives us a better complete view of what Charlie actually thinks.
making the exact same stupid arguments about two different, very, I guess, controversial topics.
So a child can cut their off and take hormone blockers and change their biology forever.
A child can cut their dick off. That's what he said, right? Let's go back.
Decision to make, yeah.
Okay.
So they're literally making the exact same stupid arguments about two different, very, I guess, controversial topics.
So a child can cut their off and take hormone
Cut their dicks off and take hormone,
blockers and change their biology forever.
change their biology forever. That is quite the claim, right? Because what I learned, and if I'm wrong, please link me to studies. What I've learned is that it's not irreversible. Like, if they stop taking the hormone blockers, that it does set in. So you can delay it for a certain amount of time. Again, I'm not an expert, but that's quite different. Okay, my puppy and my cat are not getting along for a second, but normally they do. I will show you the puppy if he walks up to me. So he's super cute, I have to admit. But yeah, hormone blockers, cutting dicks off is like a completely different thing, right? Than hormone blockers. So he's just putting everything on top of the same thing. And that is actually the trap that Jamari falls into next to Charlie, I guess. But let's see.
But they can't get married?
Well, that's a decision that now extends beyond the family, because now you're bringing in a different party. So if you have someone that's your age coming in saying, I want to marry that child, I don't think that can happen under any circumstance.
Yeah, but neither thing should happen under any circumstance.
Neither thing should happen under any circumstance. So Jamari is basically saying, not just the child cutting its dick off, right? But yeah, the hormone blockers as well. Like, it should not happen under any circumstance.
I mean, listen, guys,
Until they're 18, I guess.
I'm all for transitioning once you are
I'm all for transitioning
an adult. Using your own
once you're an adult. So 18.
money, okay? I don't think tax...
Use your own money. I don't think taxpayers should pay for it. Like, that's kind of... I don't think taxpayers should pay for it. Like, it's... You do know what it means, right? You're not helping them. You're just saying, like, hey, if you do feel like you've been born in the wrong body and you want to change this and you want to transition as an adult, I don't think you should bother other people with this problem. Then I'm kind of curious, like, Jamari, what is the list of things where you think taxpayers should pay for it, right? Because if taxpayers aren't paying for it, it's insurance companies, and then the insurance you're paying, like, is it the insurance that everyone is paying? Honestly, I don't know what the shitty system exactly is in the US, how it works. But yeah, it's kind of a statement, right? To just say, yeah, taxpayers shouldn't pay for it. Just let them figure this out on their own, use their own money. So if it is kind of expensive, right? Jamari is aware that it's expensive. So, like, it's going to only be an option for people that make enough money to afford that. I think it's fine to be critical on this topic, even with sports and stuff like that. I do want to make a video about the boxing match in the Olympics that just happened, which was, the responses there were really bad, like, especially, but okay. Let's listen.
Taxpayers should pay for that type of surgery. But if you want to go and do whatever you want to your own body, well...
You're 18, you can do what you want. So it's like comparable to, like, getting a tattoo or, like, just modifying your body, like, for art, right?
I'm really all for it. Because at the end of the day, I am for adults having their own personal freedoms. But should a child be able to make that type of life-altering decision?
What decision is the child making, right? The surgery is not happening. It's puberty blockers, right? So you're saying, I don't think a child should get puberty blockers. And let's see let's see if he's educated on the topic of
Absolutely
puberty
not.
blockers.
Should their parents be able to make that type of life-altering decision?
The way he's talking, it sounds like he thinks that children can actually transition. Like, a 13-year-old can say, hey, I'm not a boy, and then they chop it off, and it's like, okay, we got you.
For their kid? To me, no. Like, if I take a baby to a tattoo parlor and say, hey, I consent, put a tattoo right across their forehead that says idiot,
Is this really comparable, Jamari? A baby that cannot speak? You're comparing a baby that cannot speak with a child that is saying, I don't feel like I was born in the right body. I understand that a lot of people will say, hey, if it's a child up till 18, society, doctors, everyone, family needs to just keep on telling them, like, you're wrong. It is the right body. It is the right body. And hope and pray, if they believe, that the child will listen, that they will, just admit, like, hey, you know what? It's like throwing a coin, and then, yeah, heads or tails, like, it is what it is, right? This is what you got. We get stuff sometimes. We get features that we don't like, but, like, gender is kind of a big thing, right? The way, like, society, gender plays quite an important role, especially for people like the Sneako guy, right?
a reason that nobody is going
So this comparison is just a very stupid comparison. He's just comparing now, because if we talk about reality, we're talking about puberty blockers. He's comparing a child that has voiced their opinion, has gone to the doctor. It's not like they're getting puberty blockers from the internet as part of a prescription, right? They're like doing BetterHelp, like, hey, BetterHelp, I got a $5 subscription for BetterHelp. Can you please subscribe puberty blockers for me? I'm 12. Like, that's not how it works, right? Like, a lot of people that have a strong opinion about this are pretending as if it's super easy. And it's not. Like, if you think that, actually look into it. There are researchers, there are studies, lots of videos that dive into this topic. And it takes hours and hours, days, maybe weeks to really find out how it works. In the US, in other countries, comparing countries with each other, the suicide rate among people that, you know, that weren't able to transition or whatever, like, there's a lot of stuff to digest. And putting it in a 15-minute video with a clickbaity title with like the PenguinzO situation is crazy. No, it's not that crazy. There's still more to react to. But like, it's kind of messed up to upload a video like this. You have 1.3 million subscribers. You have 1 million views in 5 days because you're reacting on a topic with a very clickbaity title about Charlie. That is one of the most popular people on the platform, right? So you know you're going to get these views, but just not doing the minimum amount of research. How are you different from Sneako? Like, Sneako has a very extremely shitty opinion about pretty much everything he says, right? Right? Maybe once every 5,000 times he's right about something. Moist Critical is reasonable. And he has a reason to lean in this way. And he will add another video from Moist Critical later. So let's look at that as well.
To do that.
Okay, if I'm 16.
So a baby putting a tattoo with the word stupid on the forehead of the baby is not the same as a child of like 15 getting puberty blockers. Because they have suicidal ideation and shit like that.
And I personally want to marry this girl. She's beautiful. She's 21 years old. Her family wants to do it. My family wants to do it. You're saying I can't do that. We're both consenting. I'm ready to go. I'm physically mature. But I'm not allowed to marry because Moy says that woman's a... But if then, the next day I leave it, I'm depressed, I want to cut my penis off. I can go right into the clinic,
He's being very literal here, right? And when you're debating an idiot like this, you need to specify this. You need to mention this again. You're specifically saying that, which does not happen. That's not how it works. But again, Moist Critical is going to mention that in his follow-up video, which I think is admirable. If you're going into a debate with someone and then you're like, hey, it feels like people don't really get what I'm trying to say, instead of just posting a small message on the shitty X platform, actually uploading a video and trying to explain yourself, right?
and start taking HRT like Chris Tyson. That's a society that makes sense to you?
Puberty blockers, HRT, snipping dicks off. Like, he's talking about everything. And we're talking about children. And you need to not disconnect yourself from reality and just talk about what is actually currently allowed. Because Moist Critical has not advocated here, or as far as I know, anywhere else, for the government to be less strict on this. You know? To be less careful.
It is. I believe
okay.
everyone has complete. Yep. I believe everyone has the right to do with their body what they want to do.
Okay.
It's just so bad. I gotta say, this is the biggest L I've probably ever seen Charlie take.
The reason why it's an L is because, again, Charlie doesn't seem to be informed.
And he kind of just walks right into it. I mean,
he has an okay opinion, you know, but like putting it in this way sounds like you're saying, hey, I'm okay with kids chopping their dicks off, which is not happening as far as I know.
like I said, when someone starts using your own logic against you, the debate is pretty much over. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, you know what my point of view is? That neither of those things are okay. The other thing I did...
Those things. So it's one thing. It's transitioning. It's like just one label. That's it. Transitioning, by definition, like puberty blockers, like none of it is okay. You have to wait until you're 18.
want to say is I do believe that it's actually a lot easier for someone to transition if they want to do that, if they wait until they're an adult. I believe
it's easier for someone to transition. It's easier to wait until they're an adult. What do you mean, Jamari? These are very important words you're choosing here, right?
if you start taking the hormone blockers too young and your reproductive organs don't have the right time to develop, there will usually be a lot of complications with the surgery in the future.
And what can you put? Okay, if you take them too young and it's not developing enough, then it could be an issue with surgery in the future. I would have to research that. I'm not familiar with this argument. I have to admit, I'm not familiar with this argument. I don't want to make the video too long. But yeah, I have to look into it. Let's assume that this is correct, right? But what is on the other side of this? On the other side of this is the secondary characteristics, breasts and stuff like that. Like, those kick in with puberty. And the name puberty blocker kind of says what it is, right? It blocks puberty. So if someone stops taking the puberty blockers, puberty sets in. It still happens. That's what I have learned. If I'm wrong again, link me to a study where, convince me otherwise. Because that's what I got out of all those videos and the research that I did. I didn't read studies, but people are constantly referencing them in debates or when they're talking about these type of topics in a long form video format. You're not going to get a lot of info you're not going to get from a video like this, which is 15 minutes.
So in theory, it's actually in everyone's best interest, including people who know they want to transition at a very...
It's in everyone's best interest, so also Jamari's best interest,
young age, to wait until they are at least 8.
Guys, there is literally no argument for puberty blockers. It's in everyone's best interest to not have them exist, by definition, according to Jamari.
Either way, after this chart...
Right? He just holds on to that one argument he made about hey, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to do the surgery if they take puberty blockers. Back it up. Back it up with us. Give us links. I will check here. Let's see if he links to any studies or anything. No. Business Inquiry, Second Channel, clips. It's just so easy to do, You're saying stuff that a lot of people agree with. They're like, hey, I don't think children should do something that hurts them, they're just kids. And he's holding on to that. And is he deliberately uninformed? Maybe. I cannot rule it out. Because it's just all for the views. It's really all just for the views. And it's crazy to me. And YouTube keeps pushing this stuff, right?
Charlie has kind of been getting cooked online. Sneako has pretty much been begging him to release this debate on his channel. So I am...
So Charlie lost the debate.
Curious to see what he will do from here because, as someone who puts his opinion out there online for a living, this was kind of a take...
You're doing that as well.
That a lot of people seem to disagree with. So I'd actually...
They disagree with it because they assumed that the actual dick chopping was happening to kids.
Recorded that video yesterday, and as I was editing it right now, we actually did get some updates on the situation that include Charlie apparently walking his comments back, and him also potentially leaving the internet altogether.
Well, okay. There's a lot to dislike about this video. Let's see if he takes his comments back.
And now I give a perspective on something that immediately gets misconstrued, and I do recognize a lot of it's my fault. I assumed that Sneako was talking in hyperbole about a 9-year-old getting their cut off because I didn't have the...
He did explicitly say dicks cut off multiple times.
The assumption that anyone thought that is how transitioning works.
So here, Moist Critical is basically saying that's not how it works, which Jamari doesn't seem to get. Or maybe he does get it, but yeah, he is saying puberty blockers should not be used. It's in everyone's best interest if puberty blockers basically should just not exist anymore. We should just get rid of them. They have no function.
Under no circumstances, any legality behind a kid saying, I want to change genders, and then immediately going in and getting their cut off. That doesn't happen. I thought he was just talking.
And now I'm going to point out why I think Charlie is a bit ill-informed, right? All right, I can show you the puppy. It's the puppy. Say hello to Roger. Hello. All right. Thank you. Hopefully, I will put him in the thumbnail. Maybe that will help with the views. All right, let's
talking in
listen.
hyperbole.
I mean, I think he was kind of just trying to discuss the idea of a child transitioning in general and if that's okay.
He was saying messed up stuff. He was saying stuff that was incorrect, and now Jamari is defending Sneako. And just oh, it was just talking about transitioning in general.
I thought he was talking about the overall point of a child transitioning, which is years-long process, and you can't.
Correct. Like it takes time. It's not.
Even
This is
get that
correct.
surgery legally until you are 18.
Right.
Yeah, but you can definitely start transitioning and taking these various hormones
You're taking hormone blockers, right?
before you turn 18 years old, especially in some states.
And I guess they should have assumed that he was being literal, and that's on me. But yeah, there's no winning on anything. Sneako gets away with saying 12 to 15-year-olds can marry adults. I don't think his chat looks anything like the YouTube chat here.
So, Moist Critical is saying it's a long process. They don't just go in there and then they chop it off, right? Yes, there are puberty blockers. Moist Critical apparently is not against puberty blockers. Jamari, on the other hand, is against the use of puberty blockers. Based on research,
literally multiple times reaffirms that he believes 12 to 15-year-olds can legally, morally, and should marry adults. And there is no problems for him. But I said that I think it's okay for a child to transition, to learn about it. It's a process. You don't just go in and immediately get...
here, Moist Critical needs to be specific, I think, about puberty blockers and what they actually mean. And this to me shows that he's not fully informed on the topic. Doesn't make me an expert, but yeah, I just watched some videos of like a couple of hours long where they explain all of this stuff and some debates.
You're cut off. That's not how it works.
I mean, I wouldn't say that he's even necessarily walking anything back there. I also think that the
So you just literally said he's walking back his comments, and now you're saying I don't necessarily think he's walking back his comments. Okay.
argument he makes about like, oh, everyone's acting like what Sneako said is okay is just kind of minute, like it's not really relevant, because I have seen Sneako obviously catching a lot of backlash over this age of consent thing for quite some time, and it's pretty obvious at this point that he's kind of cultivated the type of audience that's going to ride with whatever the he thinks, so I'm not surprised that they're not like giving him backlash over those comments. That's what he has been preaching for quite a long time. Either way, this news gets a little bit spicier after...
And it doesn't it doesn't really get spicier. It really doesn't.
It was announced earlier today that Charlie is apparently going to be stepping away from his podcast. Show update. Goodbye, Charlie. Hey, everyone. Effective immediately, Charlie has made the decision to leave both the official podcast and Read the Red. He wants to go on an indefinite hiatus to scale back his time spent on the internet. We obviously wish him the best, for everyone to respect his decision, and for all to know that the show will always be open for him to drop by and talk shop should he wish to return. So yeah, it seems like Charlie might not...
He's doing a podcast. He's also sitting in front of his monitor at home. And, you know, he's spending a lot of time on this stuff. And he's like, you know, I make enough money. And sitting there. You know what I think? When you're doing like podcast stuff, you'll talk about stuff with other people and people will link that to you. Like, why didn't you push back on what that person said? Like, how many debates does Charlie do? Like, these guys don't do debates, right? Jamari is not doing debates. Like, it's not their MO. That's not how they grow their channel. So they just react to stuff. So for him, it's easier to just react to stuff. He's already doing that. That's the majority of his income, is just by uploading constantly and streaming a bit and gaming and stuff like that. That's it. And he's like, you know what? I'm kind of done with this shit. I'm stepping out of that podcast. Gives him time to do other stuff.
not be in the...
Good for you. It doesn't mean that he's like, oh my God, I was so wrong about children getting puberty blockers. You know?
the best place right now, and I do completely understand if he wants to
He's not in the best place. Like people have tried to shit on him for so many times. Like,
spend less time on the internet. This job in
this is such a nothing burger.
general
It's
can
like
be
ridiculous.
very taxing from a mental standpoint, and I can recognize how hard it can be to step away from something that is so lucrative for you that it's just become part of your life. But it can also be very toxic when you start talking about more controversial topics.
He talks constantly about controversial topics as well, right? It's just you don't have full control on what is being said because you're like in a podcast with other people. I have not watched the podcast, so I don't even know what they're talking about. But like, yeah, people often find clips of the podcast episodes and they're like, hey, listen what this person is saying there, and look at the other two guys laughing.
And obviously, you read in the comments every day. There's people.
And then he's saying like, oh, he's making so much money with the podcast. Like, really, you think that's like a significant part of his income is coming from that podcast? What these type of podcasts do is like there's a crossover from communities, right? It's like, hey, you're going to watch that listen to that or watch that podcast with your favorite streamer, YouTuber, and then it's like, hey, that other person is kind of interesting. Let me watch that other person. So they have a crossover. They're like sharing their communities with each other. That's basically it.
People that disagree with you. There's people that
And maybe some people will find their podcast, but like the majority of people end up on the podcast because they know one of them. That's how it works.
that hate you for your opinions. And maybe if he was already feeling kind of burnt out, this might have just been like the straw that broke the camel's back. And despite him dropping what I think is like pretty horrendous take, obviously I wish the
He dropped a horrendous take. So Charlie dropped a horrendous take. Like, if you're really informed on this topic, you know, Charlie basically is saying, like, I'm not against puberty blockers. And you're saying puberty blockers should not be allowed. Who is dropping the horrendous take? Like, what are your arguments? The only argument is, like, if you take puberty blockers, then the surgery at a later point will be more difficult. I'll have to research this. Is that one thing important enough to say we're not going to use puberty blockers at all? Even if in some cases it's like, hey, if we can delay puberty for like a year to allow this kid to, you know, think about this even more, but it becomes more concrete when you're taking puberty blockers. Yes, it does influence your body. Taking the hormones to actually transition, I don't know the legislation of the US, and it's different in different states. And based on what he's saying, in some states, you can actually get those before you're 18. Again, I would have to research it. I'm not sure. But you're being very generic, right? Your comments are very generic. They're about transitioning in general, which includes puberty blockers. You have a good argument against puberty blockers, so they shouldn't be used. It's in society's best interest, in everyone's best interest, for puberty blockers to not be used at all and for them to just not exist. They don't have a function.
best for him. And
They don't have a function for society. Like, there's nothing beneficial about puberty blockers. That's basically what you're saying. And then you're saying Charlie is having the horrendous take. Like, no, he's not. He's like kind of informed, but he doesn't focus on the puberty blockers and those aspects, right? He's just referring to the process being very long and saying, hey, you guys are simplifying the process. It's not simple. You have to go to your doctor. You have a lot of conversations. I think what is in this entire debate, again, I'm not an expert in this field at all. I don't know anyone, as far as I know, that has transitioned or had gender dysphoria. Like, no. So all of my knowledge is coming from like the internet and videos and stuff like that. But what I do think is pushing some people, because like I know people that are not super positive towards transitioning in kids. Like, this is very sensitive for a lot of people, especially parents. I don't have any kids myself, and I understand that this topic is a lot more sensitive for people that have kids. I do feel like people that don't have kids still are allowed to have an opinion about this as well. But yeah, regardless, what I think is people have seen videos of parents and they feel like, hey, they've seen some stuff on the internet, right? Or maybe they've seen people in real life where they see parents being too open for this, not pushing back, and them feeling like, you know what? You need to push back at least a little bit. The kids are sometimes confused, you know? And that's not a crazy take. But the assumption is that the system has been set up in a way where outside people, doctors, experts, are evaluating the case. Can you rule out that there are cases where someone will regret and wants to detransition? There are studies about that as well, right? Based on what I have heard and the studies that people have referenced, their claim is that the majority is happy with their decision, right? So there's a lot of data you can look at. There are a lot of debates, but I do feel like if you're such a big YouTuber with 1.3 million subscribers, this video is probably monetized as well, right? At least I don't see him asking for like, what is it? Like Patreon and stuff like that. He doesn't need it. I think it's really weird to see people that clearly don't need it still have that stuff. And with most of the takes, I do agree with him, but I do feel like with regard to transitioning, he's not really educated in this area, right? He just grabs a couple of stuff, and I'm wondering if he's deliberately ignorant, because that's like something that I really dislike. If someone knows that they're wrong, or if they know that there's a good chance that they're wrong, that they're not educated on a topic, that they're not an expert, they're smart enough to realize, like, there is stuff I have actually researched, and I can talk about that stuff now, even though I'm not officially an expert. Like, I've researched it enough to have an informed opinion. This topic does not seem like a topic that he has an informed opinion about. It just doesn't. It doesn't sound like he knows anyone. Maybe I shouldn't make those assumptions, but like, even in my case, I don't know anyone personally that has transitioned. My assumption is that he doesn't either, right? And then all we can do is listen to people that we don't know, that talk about this, that share their experience. And maybe it's not a topic that interests you that much. I totally get that. And I also totally get that some people have a very simple opinion. It's like, hey, it's kids. Like, no discussion. Like, hormone blockers, like, you can't spell the last part of that word. Like, the word hormone, it starts with the word hormone, so it's not allowed by definition. You're altering their biology and stuff like that. I don't know if you're altering, like, but you know what I mean. But I do feel like if you have like a very simple opinion and you're dropping it at a birthday party or a barbecue, fine, you do you, you know. And I think people notice if someone is educated on something. But yeah, there are lots of people that might not notice and just assume that what you're saying is correct, and they will just use that one argument that he gave about the surgery being more difficult to just disregard transitioning for kids. Like, you have to wait until you're 18. But clearly, he has a very specific kind of opinion about this when he's saying, like, nobody else should pay for this shit, you know? So you have a responsibility when you have a big YouTube channel, when you have 1.3 million subscribers, and it's a sensitive topic like this. He's pushing Moist Critical in front of the bus, right? He's like, fuck Moist, I'm going to create a clickbaity title. Nothing horrendous really was dropped. It wasn't Big Nothing Burger. No, Sneako is just wrong about everything, just like you would expect. I really think this video is shitty. Yeah. And I don't think, like, we can scroll down the comments. I've actually used an extension to hide them because I don't like the comments on videos, to be honest. I try to prevent myself from reading them. They piss me off. But like, go through the comments. You'll probably not see anyone explain what I've been saying in this video. Like, you're not going to see that. That's just not going to happen. Again, maybe I'm proven wrong, and people have pushed back on JAMARI and said, hey, dude, actually. But yeah, I don't expect that to happen. So he's just saying what he knows that the majority of the people that watch him want to hear. And it's like a very simple formula, you know? Charlie is like very big. Putting him in the thumbnail is going to help. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put Charlie in the thumbnail and JAMARI, because my face is not famous at all. I'm going to put them both there, and I'll try to go for a very clickbaity title, because yeah, I'd like to have a video with a lot of views once in a while. Thanks for watching. See you next time.